Hello everyone, I'm Katia Prado. Welcome to today's program, Fuel System Inspection and Compliance. This program was created to help you successfully manage your APHIS fueling facility. During the program, we'll walk you through a typical inspection of your fueling facility based on federal and state regulations and APHIS guidelines, as well as what we've seen regulatory inspectors look for while conducting regulatory inspections on site. We'll also highlight areas where sites have received a notice of violation or compliance action, and we'll tell you about the inspector's positive comments as well. Fuel facility inspections are based on daily, weekly, and monthly requirements that APHIS has established in the fuel systems checklist that you should already be familiar with. These checklists are available in poster and pocket-sized versions and should be easy to find at your facility. The key to staying in compliance is self-identification of problems that need to be corrected and before they are pointed out during a regulatory inspection. During inspections or at any other times, if you discover problems with your fuel system other than dispensers that may require some type of maintenance or repair, notify the installation and submit a work order. If the installation says the problem in question is not the responsibility or they don't have funding, contact the Environmental Division at APHIS headquarters. However, maintenance and repair of dispensers is an APHIS responsibility. The three basic components of a fuel system are the tanks, which contain the fuel, whether it's gasoline, diesel, E85, E10, or other type of fuel. The distribution lines, which run from your tanks to the dispensers. And finally, you have the dispensers, which are used for putting the fuel into the customer's vehicles. So let's start our walkthrough inspection, and we'll talk about each area you need to inspect and what you need to look for. If you look at a fuel system externally, the first thing you notice at the tank pit area are the different manhole covers. The large manhole covers are connected to your tank sump. Inside the tank sump is the top part of the submersible pump, which is inserted into the tank, which pumps the fuel to the dispensers. Inside, you also have line leak detectors, tank sump sensors, and piping, which we'll see in more detail in just a moment. One of the small manhole covers, called the fill point cover, is color-coded based on color codes from the American Petroleum Institute, or API. Those colors will designate which tanks contain regular fuel, mid-grade fuel, and premium fuel. As you can see, this manhole cover is painted white, which means this is the regular tank. There is another small manhole cover, typically one per tank, the same size as your fill points, and those are the Stage 1 vapor recovery points. We'll discuss Stage 1 vapor recovery in just a moment. A spill containment device called a spill bucket is found underneath the small manhole covers. Again, there are two spill buckets. One is for the fill point connection for the tanker truck to offload fuel into the tank. The other one is at the Stage 1 vapor recovery connection. Let's remove some of the manhole covers and see what's inside. While inspecting the fill point spill buckets, be sure to check the fill caps. You'll need your keys for this. Your keys should always be in possession of an APHIS manager or supervisor. The keys are never given to the tank delivery driver, so an APHIS associate will have to unlock the fill cap prior to each delivery. Remember to always compare the empty space in the tank from the automatic tank gauge and stick readings to the planned delivery volume to make sure the delivery will fit and not result in an overfill. When inspecting the fill caps, make sure they are tight. You shouldn't be able to unscrew them by hand with a lock in place. When you take them off, turn the cap over and check the gasket, making sure there is a good seal. Look for cracks in the gasket. After checking the cap, look at the drop tube, which is the aluminum tube fitted inside the piping connection at the fill point that goes down into the bottom of the tank. Make sure there is no crimping or other damage to the lip of the drop tube that would allow vapors or fuel to escape from the driver's hose. Next, do a visual inspection inside the spill bucket. Typically, the spill buckets are black plastic or fiberglass. These should be clean with no fuel, water, or debris. So that means after each delivery, the driver should not drain his hose into the spill bucket and just leave the fuel there. There's also a drain valve inside the spill bucket, sometimes chain or spring operated, that can be used to drain fuel back into the tank if needed. Therefore, you don't want any water in your spill bucket that might get into the tank through this drain. It is fine to drain fuel by itself back into the tank, but you don't want any water or debris getting in. The spill bucket should be checked after each delivery by the driver and by an APHIS associate. If the driver leaves fuel in the spill bucket, this fuel should be drained back into the tank or removed by the driver. Here's some examples of bad spill buckets. Let's move on to the Stage 1 vapor recovery point. At the Stage 1 vapor recovery connection, you'll see an orange covering cap, which designates it at Stage 1. Did you know that about half of the air pollution from gas stations comes from the tanker trucks' deliveries? As delivery trucks fill the tank, vapors that are inside the tank are displaced. And if you don't collect them, they are released into the atmosphere. Therefore, it is a requirement under the Clean Air Act that these vapors be collected. If you don't, it will not only be a safety hazard, but an emissions citation as well. Your Stage 1 vapor recovery point is where the vapors from the tank are collected in a second hose and are sent back into the delivery truck as the tank is filling up. If you have a Stage 1 vapor recovery point on site, it is required that the fuel delivery driver use it. All tanks must have Stage 1 by January 31st, 2011. Contact the Real Estate Environmental Division at APHIS headquarters if you don't have these connections. Just like with the fill point spill bucket, you want to check that the Stage 1 spill bucket is clean, with no fuel, water, or debris in it. Then check the cap again. It will typically be an orange cap and will usually not be locked. The fill point is the only cap that is required to be locked. Remove the orange cap and look inside, just like the lid from the fill point, to make sure the gasket will get a good seal. Check the seal for cracks and severe wear, and if you see any, you will need to get the cap or gasket replaced. Also, when you look down at the top of the Stage 1 vapor recovery point, you will see the vapor recovery dry brake. This is supposed to be sealed. It is spring-loaded so you can push down on it. Make sure it is hard to move and that it does go down and back up to get a good seal. If it is not sealed properly, vapors will escape during the day. The vapor leak will be worse if the orange cap seal is cracked or missing. On a sunny day, you can stand back and see vapors escaping, and that tells you that the spring-loaded dry brake is leaking. So in summary, you need good spring action, good rubber seals, and no vapors escaping from your Stage 1 vapor recovery point. After a heavy rain and just before a fuel delivery, you notice water is in the fill point spill bucket. The fuel drop is completed. The driver drains a small amount of fuel into the spill bucket and then says he can drain the spill bucket into the tank. Should he do this? Yes or no? The answer is no. Only fuel, no water or debris should be drained into the tank. Here's your next question. You have Stage 1 vapor recovery. The fuel driver says he doesn't have to use them since the state does not require Stage 1. Is the driver required to use Stage 1? Yes or no? The answer is yes. If Stage 1 is installed, it must always be used during fuel deliveries. We looked at the fill point and the vapor recovery point connections. Now, let's look inside the large manhole cover. Underneath is a cap and the tank sump. I've asked Talon to help remove the manhole cover. Here's what a clean sump looks like. There are several items inside the tank sump that you need to inspect. First, is it clean? Is there a substantial amount of fuel or water inside? And by substantial, we're talking about a ½ inch or more. This needs to be removed as soon as possible. If found, notify the installation and submit a work order. To detect water or fuel in your sump, you have a sump sensor, which is positioned vertically within a ½ inch from the bottom of the sump and in accordance with the manufacturer. There are different types of sensors, but typically they are cylindrical in shape, 2 or 3 inches in diameter, about 1 foot long with a wire attached to them. They hang down near the bottom of the sump. The sensor is typically either suspended or mounted, usually with a gray, black, yellow, or other colored wire going to the sensor. And it's then tied back into the leak detection system and will give an alarm if fuel or water comes in contact with the sensor. Make sure the sensors are positioned properly. If not, you could get a substantial amount of fuel or water in the sump without any alarm on the leak detection system. So remember to place your sensor within ½ an inch from the bottom. You'll also need to check for leaks and seeps in your piping. These can be found at the top of the submersible pump in the sump, where you will also find the line leak detector. Check all of the piping and connections for leak and seeps, and then check your electrical conduits to make sure they aren't cracked, which would allow explosive vapors to penetrate the conduit. Here's a photo showing the top of your submersible pump and line leak detector. The line leak detector monitors flow and possible line leaks. An alarm will sound if you have a line leak that exceeds the set points in the leak detection panel. You also need to check the flex line for leaks. This line runs from the submersible pump to the piping just prior to exiting the sump. There should be rubber sealing boots on all piping and conduit entering the sump from the outside. So check that the rubber boots and seals are tight. Make sure these aren't cracked or leaking, which would allow water to seep in. If fuel leaks into this area, it could seep into the soil outside the sump, so make sure you check all of the penetrations. However, the dispenser piping test boot, if installed, should be open to allow a piping leak to flow back into the sump and set off the sump sensor alarm. Here's a photo of an APHIS sump that is full of water. At this site, we should ask, was there a sump sensor, and did that sensor give an alarm? It's hard to tell in this picture whether there was a sump sensor or not. Some of the older fuel sites may not have sensors. However, those built in the last 10 years or so should have them. Weekly inspections of tank sumps become even more important if your site does not have sump sensors. Fuel and/or water leaks need to be repaired in a timely manner. Notify the installation and submit a work order. That finishes up the components of the tank and the area around the tank pit. You know that tank sump sensors are supposed to be placed very close to the bottom of the sump. During inspection, you see one lying on its side on the sump bottom. Is this okay? Yes or no? The answer is no. Sump sensors should be positioned vertically within ½ an inch from the sump bottom. A tank sump sensor alarm goes off, so you inspect it. You notice 2 inches of fuel or water in the tank sump, but cannot see a leak. What should you do? A. Have a contractor pump it out and bill APHIS. B. Clean it out with absorbent pads and throw them away. C. Contact the installation, send a work order, and request that they clean it out and inspect the sump. D. Shut down all fuel dispensing and secure the area. C is the correct answer. For any maintenance and repair of the tank system except dispensers, notify the installation and submit a work order.